Okay, everybody ready? We're on page 117, chapter 14, 4 days. I stood in the hot, close room, looking down at Bernie's still form. Anger surged through me. It ain't fair. Florrie drew the sheet over Bernie's face. She nodded toward the corner, where Betsy lay curled up with a napping Dilly. I'm glad I didn't wake her. It don't seem right that in 3 days she's lost her whole family. I hate that I can't do anything. But maybe you can, Eel. Maybe you can help your Dr. Snow somehow. We went into the hall. Florrie said she would fetch Mrs. Lewis and ask her to keep Betsy. I think she has an aunt somewhere. I expect Mrs. Lewis will know how to reach her. Like Reverend Whitehead, she had dark shadows under her eyes from lack of sleep. I need to get home. I cleared my throat. Be careful how you go, Florrie. You too, Eel. Dr. Snow was still standing before the pump, making notes in a small black book. He took one look at my face and said, I'm sorry, lad. I stared down at my feet and pushed at a cobblestone with my toe. I wouldn't cry in front of Dr. Snow, not in front of any swell like him. Sorry for running off, I mumbled. A few families passed by us, but the stream of refugees was a trickle compared to Friday afternoon. I figured most everyone who could leave had already gotten away. I looked into the dark, empty windows around us. Were there still children like Bernie lying inside, suffering, with no one left to help them? Eel, I've been studying cholera in other parts of London, but this epidemic is different, Dr. Snow said urgently. It's come on fast and is confined to one neighborhood. That makes me suspect a direct link with a single water source. I meant what I said. This might be the best chance I'll ever have to prove my theory, and I do need your help. But but what could I do? I can't stop all my other work, so I need an assistant. You know these streets and the people who live here, Dr. Snow explained. More importantly, they know you. You're not a strange, fancy doctor they've never seen before. True enough. I'll never be a swell like you, I said. Then I shook my head. But I can't exactly make out what you want me to do. Well, for one thing, talk. I will need you to help me visit homes and talk to people. You mean warn them about drinking the water? I thought of Florrie and how she had drunk water from the pump. Warning will be a part of it, yes. We will also need to ask questions to determine if the Broad Street pump really is to blame for this cholera. Don't worry, I'll guide you and I'll tell you what to. Sorry. Don't worry, I'll guide you and tell you what to ask, Dr. Snow reassured me. Then he added, and, naturally, I'll pay you. Dr. Snow would pay me just to talk to people. I could use the money, but I wouldn't help Dr. Snow for that reason. I was going to help him for Bernie's sake. What do you say, Eel? All right, I agreed. I'll do it, though I'm not sure how talking to people can prove anything. You'll see, Dr. Snow promised. But we must start at the beginning. The first thing I want you to do is close your eyes. It must be, I thought, some sort of test. Of what, I couldn't say. I didn't know how to pass it either, so I just shut my eyes. What I saw was Bernie's small face, etched with pain, which made me quiver. I had to take a great gulp of air to calm myself. As I did, Dr. Snow took me by the shoulders and moved me so I was facing a different direction. All right now, open your eyes and tell me what you see. What I saw was the Broad Street pump. Now, Eel, I want you to pretend you are seeing this neighborhood for the first time, Dr. Snow instructed. What would you say about this pump? Just tell me everything that pops into your head. Well, a pump is one place that people in the neighborhood get their water, although some also get it piped into their houses these days, I said slowly. It pumps water up from a well, and folks use that water to cook with and, of course, to drink. He nodded. Go on. Uh, uh, this here is the Broad Street pump, but it ain't the only one in the vicinity. Most people use the pump closest to them, though not always. I mean, it's a matter of taste sometimes, I said. The Broad Street pump is known as a good one. The water isn't too murky, though I never drank from it when I worked at the Lion. I stopped and felt my cheeks get hot. But I don't work there anymore. Are you in the habit of drinking from any other pumps around here? Dr. Snow asked. I had to think about that for a minute. Well, I stop at Bridal Street sometimes, or Warwick Street, on account of their pump is near the park in Golden Square. I like to wash off my legs and sit in the sun to dry, especially if I've been mudlarking, which is rather a dirty business. Dr. Snow smiled. Can you name some of the other pumps in this area? Oh, let's see. There's one on Vigo Street. Oh, and there's the little Marlborough Street pump, but everyone tries to avoid it. I wrinkled my nose. The water smells awfully bad. Now, you said you didn't drink from this pump when you worked at the Lion, said Dr. Snow. Well, why not? Oh, we had our own water, which was delivered from the New River Company to make ale. We had a well, too, I said. I think most of the men, there were about 70 workers, just drank ale. I never got in the habit of stopping at the Broad Street pump because I always had a jug of cold, clear water waiting for me at the Lion. Very good, Eel. And now, what else can you tell me about this neighborhood? I frowned up at him. His dark eyes seemed kind enough, but they held a challenge. Was I just an ignorant mudlark, or was I worthy of helping in this important work? Well, like I said, we have lots of families, squeezed together close, and lots of little shops and businesses, too. There's the brewery, of course, and other tailors besides Mr. Griggs. We have a bakery, a furniture maker, a greengrocer, a jeweler, a bonnet maker. I know a shop that sells trimmings for ladies' hats, a dressmaker, and an engraver. Oh, and an umbrella maker, too. Besides the Lion, I guess the Ely Brothers factory is the largest business. They make those percussion caps, the little metal part of the firearm that contains the gunpowder. And then there's the St. James Workhouse over on Poland Street. Just thinking about the workhouse made me shudder. Reverend Whitehead and Dr. Snow might be nicer than most swells, but I couldn't trust them with the truth. If they knew it was just Henry and me, and him not even 8 years old, they might think the best place for us was that very workhouse. I would feel like being in prison. Excuse me, it would feel like being in prison, stuck in with hundreds of men, women, and children, all put in separate dormitories and made to do what everyone else did, day after day. All at once, I thought of something. Dr. Snow, uh, there must be more than 500 folks in that workhouse. But Reverend Whitehead hasn't mentioned anything about the cholera there, and Charlie the Coffin Man didn't need to go near it. Interesting, mused Dr. Snow. You're doing well, Eel. Anything else? In front of us, a hearse stopped, pulled by a horse so skinny its ribs showed through. Two men, with handkerchiefs tied over their mouths, brought a wooden box into a house across the way. I took a breath and kept talking, almost as if my life depended on it. And perhaps it did. Excellent observations, said Dr. Snow when I'd finally run out of words. Now, while you were with your friend, I drew some samples from the pump. I'll take them home to look at under the microscope. Though I'm afraid that up to now I haven't been able to see cholera material in water. No one has. So, what will you do to prove the cholera comes from water? We will have to use other means to prove my theory. We'll have to rely on the 4 Ws. I frowned. Never heard of them. So you, my students, Have you heard of the four W's? What do you think? Take a moment and think, what could those four W's be? Get those in your head. And then as we continue reading, let's see if your guess is the right guess. These are four questions that must occupy us in trying to understand and stop this outbreak. If we ask the right questions, we may just find the answers. Can you guess what they are? I must have looked bewildered because the doctor smiled and said, "Just use your common sense. That's always the best place to start." I hated to look stupid in front of Dr. Snow. I had to come up with something. Well, could one of those W's be what? Because we want to know what is going on? Dr. Snow beamed, just as he had when I'd captured his guinea pig the first time we met. It made him look younger somehow. Yes, indeed. We must start by asking, what is going on? What is the disease? Well, that's easy. It's cholera, the Blue Death. Dr. Snow nodded. We are sure it is cholera in this epidemic, but doctors may not always know. Many times in history, people were confronted with a disease and didn't understand what it was. Now, can you guess what the next question is? I stared blankly. Then I noticed that Dr. Snow had begun looking curiously at the houses, craning his neck as if to peer inside. This must be some kind of hint. Who? I exclaimed. The second question we should ask is who? Who is getting sick? Dr. Snow nodded. Very good. Go on. I kept thinking, what else would I want to know if I were Dr. Snow? Well, seems like you might want to ask where folks are. I began slowly. Where do the people who are getting sick live? And not just where they live, but where they work or go to school, Dr. Snow agreed. Even where people go to eat or drink can be important. I counted them on my fingers. What? Who? Where? I tried to think of another W. I shook my head. I give up. When? When did they fall ill? Dr. Snow said, beginning to walk off. I turned over the four W's in my mind. What? Who? Where? When? Dr. Snow, I think you're missing one, I said, hurrying to catch up. Maybe it should be five W's. Maybe we should also ask why. Because that's really what we want to know in the end, isn't it? Why are ordinary folks getting sick with this awful disease that can kill a body in a single day? Dr. Snow turned to me. Eel, you've hit the nail on the head. Until we understand why, we cannot stop cholera from spreading through this or any other neighborhood like a fire out of control. I'm rather impressed, lad. You have the makings of a good investigator. Let's go home. We have a lot of work to do in 4 days. Home. The word gave me a start. I had almost forgotten about my own problems, what with thinking about Bernie and the five W's and all this talk of theories. I would have to tell Dr. Snow more about the lion, I decided. There's just one thing, sir, I began. Like I mentioned, I used to work at the Lion Brewery. I lost my situation there last week. It wasn't my fault, I swear. I'm honest, but I was falsely accused of stealing. Go on. But that means I don't have anywhere to live right now. I paused. So, I was wondering, do you think I might sleep in your shed, at least for a few days? I held my breath. Well, that seems reasonable, he said. Mind you, I'll have to speak with Mrs. Weatherburn. She runs a tight ship, as you may have noticed. You'll have meals, too, and I suppose we should come to an understanding about your wages. I waited, hoping it would be enough to pay Mrs. Miggle. This will be different work from what you've done before, Eel, he went on. Oh, there's physical work. Long hours of walking up and down the neighborhood and knocking on doors. I'm strong, and I don't get tired, I put in eagerly. Dr. Snow waved a hand. Oh, but more than that. This work will require all of your faculties, your eyes, your hearing, your brain, and a pen. Oh, but wait. You probably don't read or write. Actually, I do, I told him. I went to a day school till I was 10, and then a ragged school, when I could, up until last year. I know my numbers, too. Excellent. We must present to the committee in 4 days' time, but the work won't end there. It will take me weeks after that, if not months, to finish a thorough study, Dr. Snow explained. You already pay me 2 shillings a week now, sir, I reminded him, to clean the cages and feed your animals. Do I? All right, then. I'll add 4 more. What do you say to 6 shillings a week, plus breakfast and dinner? 6 shillings? Breakfast? And dinner? It would be more than enough. Thank you, sir. I'm very grateful. Then I thought of Mrs. Miggle. Do you think, Dr. Snow, that I might be paid a part of my wages by Friday morning? It's on account of a previous commitment. Dr. Snow's eyes twinkled. Do you mean to tell me you're in debt, Eel? Nothing like that, sir. To my surprise, Dr. Snow pulled 3 shillings out of his pocket and dropped them into my hand. Here's an advance. You'll have 3 more on Friday morning. Believe me, young man, you will work for it. So, there we are, chapter 14. Now, those questions he's asking. Dr. Snow says those are the questions that an investigator asks. There are also questions that what other kind of person asks?